This right here, girl, is an ad. I'm gonna need you to get you some of this Just Move Energy supplement so you can have the energy to get your workouts done like I need to get mine done, girl. It is sometimes a struggle and you need a little extra. Plus the protein shakes. I don't have an appetite a lot of the time. Protein shakes really help me after the workout because I do not want to be on the massage table with my stomach growling because that's where I'm going after this, okay? So I get my protein shake done before, boom, I got both of them. I'm ready, okay? I'm getting old. My knees is a problem. Do you see me warming it up? Do you see me trying to stretch it out? That's 35 pounds. I'm squatting 35 pounds. I'm proud. You can get those gloves and other workout gear from LASHAE.com. The link is down below in the description box, girl. Yes. Girl, I have to give it to myself. You look good, girl. You look good. Juvie. I just had to put him in here because he's cute. I'm on my way to the spa, girl. Piece of serenity. My homegirl does not want to be seen, but she does the best massages. I go to her at least once a week for this muscle situation, girl. And she also gave me this massage cream with CBD in it that really helps with my aches and my pain. So get you some. All of this. Get you some. 15% off with my Relax Me Bondi code. Okay, girl? Get it. Come on in. Come on in. Come on in. Not come on in. Not come. Sorry, y'all. Y'all know I'm weird. Whatever.
Hey everybody, what's up? It's your girl BondyBlue. So let's go ahead. Hey everybody, what's up? It's your girl BondyBlue. Okay, follow me on Instagram and let's get into the video. Right?
Hey everybody, what's up? It's your girl BondyBlue, and I am back for another Now That We Are Grown review, girl. Today we are about to get into Eve's Bayou. Hey everybody, thank you Reese Cup 35 for becoming a member. It is greatly appreciated. Before I get into this, I want to remind everybody that the BondyBlue shows have now been made members only lives. So there was one I did on Wednesday. I've just made that public for everybody because they flagged all of the shorts that I created. So I just went ahead and put the whole live up since it was monetized. So, after we finish this live, if y'all want to catch the BondyBlue show that I did from Wednesday, make sure y'all catch that. I went ahead and posted the link on my community page, and I'll probably post it again, child, just to make sure that you get notifications because y'all know how YouTube like to play. But anyway, we are here for Now That We're Grown, Eve's Bayou. And you guys, I feel like when this movie first came out, it got a lot of mixed reviews, even though Siskel and Ebert said it was the best movie of 1997. And I'm going to tell you why. Because the movie was magical within itself, but people do not like when they don't get an ending they can understand. They do not like that. But I think that this is one of those movies where they were trying to make a point with the way they made the movie. So even though we didn't get a definitive answer for the ending of this movie, that is the point. Eve's Bayou is about memory. It's about remembering traumatic experiences and how, depending on who the person is, the memory can be different. The story can be different. It can have a different context, a different tone. And that's what happened here, girl. Okay, memory. Listen, we're gonna get into it. I'm getting everybody a chance to get into the room, girl. Don't start quoting now, because I'm ready. All right, y'all. Make sure y'all like the video as y'all come into the room. We are going to pray for the best that we get through this live without any technical difficulties, girl. So let's go ahead and press through. Let's start. Y'all ready? Let's do it. Okay. So, Eve's Bayou is named after an enslaved African medicine woman who saved the life of Jean-Paul Baptiste, okay? Who in return for saving his life, freed her and gave her this island, this piece of land that they now call Eve's Bayou. Perhaps in gratitude, she bred him 16 children. Perhaps. Okay? I say perhaps because we know how often during slavery, what people perceived as relationships that were romantic were really forced. Like a man can have 15, 16 children with a woman and she not want any of that. Okay. But yes, she bred. And when they said she bred 16 children, it made me think more of slavery and how her being with him may not have been a choice. And even if at some point it was something that she felt was a better option, it's kind of like it's either be with this white man that's going to give me a piece of land and somewhere for all my children to have something thereafter, or fend for myself or possibly have to run, because if I tell him I don't want to give him 16 children, he may try to kill me. You know what I'm saying? So it definitely was giving this was a relationship against this lady's will. It's lagging a little bit. Let me know, you guys, before I get into it, okay? But the 16 children of Jean Paul Baptiste and Eve, the enslaved African woman. I'm sorry, y'all. Okay, yeah, no. Okay, no lagging on your end. Okay, all right. Now we can get into it because I wanted to make sure. Okay, so Eve is telling this story. So Eve explains that they are the descendants of Eve. Okay, Eve was the name of the bayou, and then the child who is telling the story as an adult. Shout out to Tamra Tooney. Okay, or Tune, however you want to pronounce it. But she is Eve as an adult telling this story from the 50s when she was a child, and that's why it's about memory. And one of the lines they use at the beginning of the movie and at the end of the movie is, and I'm about to read it verbatim, okay? Memory is a selection of images, some lucid, others printed indelibly on the brain. Each image is like a thread, each thread woven together to make a tapestry of intricate texture. And the tapestry tells a story, and the story is our past, okay? Y'all said it's lagging now? Okay. There's a lag on my feed. Okay. It's blurry. Okay, now y'all are saying that y'all are getting issues. Okay. All right. So I really wanted this to be alive. I did. But I also do not want to start this and then it starts, doing the start, stop. Like I really don't want to go through that. So I may possibly, make sure, just make it so that this video is not alive. Like we might have to just drop off and I'll have to come back. It's on and off. Okay. Um, for some it's lagging, for others it's fine. We will live. It's okay. Yeah, no, I just because I really don't want this to be messed up. Yeah, it doesn't matter if you're it doesn't matter wherever I'm live from, it's gonna be an issue. The sound isn't affected, it's the video quality that's lagging. Okay, all right. So let me see, because I don't usually I would start a recording, with OBS, and that would be going at the same time as this, but it was causing issues. The audio is not lagging, it's the video. Okay. All right. I feel like I want to, have a clean feed, but I don't want the computer to crash on me like it did the last time. So I'm kind of scared to start a recording on its own. Okay, well, we'll try. And if we get too many issues, I'm going to just cut it before I get too deeply into it. And then I'll just record it and put it up later. Okay, give me 1 second. Okay, since the audio is giving us, is better than the video quality, I'm just gonna stay off camera for the beginning of this video. All right. 200 people in here. Y'all like the video. And now I am going to start again. Okay. All right. Eve's Bayou, named after an enslaved African medicine woman who saved the life of Jean Paul Baptiste, who in return freed her and gave her a piece of land by the bayou. Perhaps in gratitude, she bred him 16 children. We told y'all we do not think that she wanted to do this. We feel like this may perhaps have been against her will. They are the descendants, this whole family are the descendants of Eve and Jean Paul Baptiste. And we have young Eve here, named after the original Eve, telling the story of the summer she killed her father. That's how they catch you. What you mean, the summer you killed your father? Kyrie Downs, thank you so much for the super chat. The history of the Bayou sounds eerily like the history of the neighborhood I grew up in. Oh, thank you. The story begins at a party being thrown at Eve's family's home. A couple is on the dance floor, slow dancing to a fast Zydeco song, which was weird to me. Two things, okay? I just want to point this out for reference point. I'm sure Black people listen to Zydeco music. I mean, we do now, but when I was growing up, it probably would have been a blues song. Okay, I'm just telling y'all right now. It was given wacka. Was it wacka something blues, Lackawanna blues? That's what this scene was giving me because back in the day, when people were still segregated, Black people used to throw the best fish fries and parties down to their houses. Okay, so as I was saying, the Moreaus, Maddie Moreau and Lenny Moreau, are on the dance floor, slow dancing. Lenny got his hands full of Maddie's ass. Okay, Maddie is played by Lisa Nicole Carson. And if anybody knows anything about Lisa Nicole Carson, y'all know that she was the epitome of sexuality. Like the lips, the titties, the ass, like she's giving you all of it, honey. And she's going to look at you like, come get it, you know? So, as she and her husband are on the dance floor dancing, there are women who are sitting, kind of watching, and they already talking about her, saying that he better get that ass while it's in his hands before he loses it, because apparently Maddie is for the streets, okay? So, Harry. Harry is taking candids of Eve and her mom, Roz, and her aunt, Moselle. Auntie Moselle smacks Harry upside the head and tells him to put the camera down. And I don't know if anybody else noticed this, but in the moment when she hit him upside the head, I was like, she got a lot of, it was just like extra aggression. Okay. I don't know if it was just me, but it seemed like it was a little extra aggression in that moment. Like, down, Harry. I was just like, girl, let's calm down for a second. Why does it feel like we're this, angry about it? And this is another thing I noticed throughout this entire movie, and tell me if I'm tripping. Throughout the entire movie, I felt like Eve's perspective of, of all of the men was a little worrisome to me. It was a little worrisome to me. Uncle Harry, Mr. Lenny, a lot of these men gave me the vibes that they were being too nice to the little girls. It might just be me, but Uncle Harry, wanting a kiss for the chocolates, I'm sure it was innocent, but I believe they did that on purpose. When you think about the overall story, it gives the notion that young girls weren't safe around men, not even their fathers. I think that was a huge, part of the story here, is that no matter what, you always had to kind of be on the lookout for somebody trying to snatch your puss, for lack of a better term. Okay. So Eve, aka Red, like I said, is serving chocolates at the party, and she's receiving kisses from Uncle Harry for them. Her mom asks, where did she get those chocolates, with this look on her face as if she knew something that we did not know. She says, you told me to help serve, Mama. Then she tells her to go finish serving them then. And then her little brother Poe comes over, and her mother grabs him and hugs him for a long time, y'all. Another moment that it seemed to be innocent, but I think it told a lot of the story. In this moment where Roz picks up Poe and holds him and kisses him, mommy's baby, just utter admiration for this little boy, and Eve stands by, and Eve looks jealous. I feel like as the middle child, she felt like she was nobody's favorite. Cicely, her older sister, I believe, was the father's favorite, obviously. And now we see that in some ways, Poe was probably the favorite of her mother. Just in this one moment, I don't think we saw many other interactions between Roz and Poe in order for us to know for a fact that's what it was. But we know how women tend to coddle their children, especially in a situation where the boy is the youngest. So yeah, that moment resonated to let us know that Eve is kind of the oddball out. She's the child that, kind of doesn't belong in a way. So Eve offers Poe some chocolates. And as soon as he takes a handful of the chocolate, he throws it in his mouth and she tells him they're bees. And then they run off playing and screaming. And then here comes Cicely. Cicely is about to be 14. Eve is 11. And Poe, I believe, is 7 or 9. One of those two. Either way, Cicely is extremely mature for her age, but only in the way of a child pretending to be grown, not in a way of actual maturity. Honestly, it seemed as if even though Eve was more childlike, her understanding and emotional intelligence was, I believe, more mature than even her older sister, because Cicely was about appearances. Cicely was about looking like the perfect child. But there was something about Eve that she just sat and watched everybody and just had an understanding of things that was more honest. So, like I said, Cicely comes over, quotes Shakespeare, and then they toast champagne in French. Viva livra les bâtisses, bon chant et bon santé. Wait, I'm sorry, I want to say it right. Bon chant et bon santé, mere. Okay? So, whatever the hell that means. Let the good times roll. That's not what that means, but that's what that means. Okay, long live the family Baptiste. Okay, and let them have a good time, child. All right, my broken French goes in and out, child. But y'all know I have a particular kinship to this movie, not only because I am from New Orleans and grew up in Louisiana and have my own family's connection to what I feel like is hidden voodoo or voodoo, if you want to be more accurate. Voodoo, and that's what they said in the movie. They didn't say voodoo, they said voodoo. And it shows that it comes from the actual like family spiritual practice. When you tell us Eve was a medicine woman, the Bayou, the woman that the whole story, the Bayou is for, when you tell me she's a medicine woman, that probably means that she practiced voodoo, practiced voodoo. And there was a moment during the movie where it's obvious that she's not supposed to practice voodoo. They don't want her to practice voodoo, but they know what she does is real in some capacity. So they respect it. Everybody in the community respects it, right? So that makes me feel like Eve passed down the gift to her line. It's not just about being a medicine woman. It's also using those herbs and things and actual spells and practices and things of that nature. Like they were showing us this in the most subtle of ways, which I thought was beautiful, especially because they put it in realistic terms. And that's another thing I noticed is a lot of times when people talk about voodoo or they talk about African spirituality on movies, it's either extremely gritty or there is a lack of putting it in real terms, everyday life terms. You know what I'm saying? So we'll get back to that. But I definitely wanted to, point out this connection. Yes, this connection to the Africanness, this connection to the spirituality, to the voodoo. Like there is something rooted here that goes deeper than what we see. What we see is a prominent Creole family. That's what we see. We see rich Black folk is what you see. But essentially it is built on, the deep, deep, long-rooted spiritual practices of African people. So then we see Lewis, y'all. Lewis, the good doctor, Samuel L. Jackson. Samuel L. Jackson. Trying to get my mouth right, y'all. I'm sorry. Bear with me. Okay. So then we see Lewis, the good doctor, dancing way too sexually with Miss Maddie Monroe. They all on the dance floor in the middle of these people's house, grinding like we on soul food at Bird's wedding. Okay. And Lewis then asked his baby girl, Cicely, to dance with them. Okay. Well, come, Cicely, come dance with me, baby girl. And, she comes out and with her head held up high and her shoulders back and does her little dance. And everybody's like, oh, get it, girl. Definitely just like in Soul Food, where Mama Joe comes over to interrupt the bumping and grinding that Lemuel was doing with his ex old lady. Yeah, it seemed as if Lewis definitely realized that this maybe didn't look so good. But I think this was another moment where pay attention. Lewis is letting y'all know that he doesn't really handle himself well. He's sloppy about it. He does shit in front of everybody, and it's crazy. Like his character is so charming, you want to choke him with his charm, because he'll do things in front of everybody that are obviously inappropriate, and then he'll smile and act as if it's nothing, lighthearted almost. And you can understand why everybody will allow him the grace. Like, I don't know why, but as I was watching throughout the movie, Lewis often seemed like somebody that was always trying to be a good guy, even though he was obviously really messed up. You know what I'm saying? Like it was this need, I guess, to somewhat be a people pleaser, but as a man, that turns into a whole nother thing. Yes, thank you for pointing that out, that he handed Eve the tray when he went to dance with Cicely, and then, come dance with me, baby girl, as if Eve wasn't standing right there. So Lewis then, like I said, asked Cicely, his baby girl, to dance with him, and both Eve and her mother, Roz, stand by looking jealous. I thought that was funny too. It wasn't just Eve that looked upset, it was Roz who was upset too. Harry asked Eve to dance, and she says it's okay, and then she runs off to the barn, angry, or the carriage house, whatever you like to call it, and falls asleep in the carriage. When she wakes up a little while later, she finds her dad and Mrs. Maddie Monroe hunching up against the wine bottles they were supposed to be coming to get. And as soon as she wakes up and she sees him thrusting against her and her moaning in exhilaration, she starts to hyperventilate. Something falls, and they're made aware that somebody has caught them. And when Lewis turns around and puts the light on, the look on his face, y'all, this is really one of those times where Samuel L. Jackson was acting his ass off, okay? Because it was all about his facial expressions. He turned the light on, there's this look of, wait, what's going on? Who's in here? Then the surprise, and then the shame of his daughter catching him. And then he hurry up and turns it on. He goes over to her. She's hyperventilating. He gets her to breathe, calm down, picks her up, hugs her. And she says, I'm sorry, I was asleep. And he says, oh, it's okay, baby. You scared us too. And I was like, the fuck you mean she scared you too? Y'all, that was something very interesting to me. Very, very interesting for him to, in some way, act as if they had both startled each other. Yeah, you may have been startled, but your daughter wasn't startled because she heard something go clunk in the carriage house. She's hyperventilating because she saw you sticking your penis in Miss Maddie here, Miss Maddie Monroe, while her mom is only, what, 4 yards away inside of the house along with the rest of the family. I mean, it was almost not just downplaying, but acting as if, oh, it's okay, baby, as if Eve did something wrong by being in there. Like, that was another thing. I was like, why is he saying it as if she did something wrong? Blaming her. Yes, it was absolutely trying to balance blame between them. And I feel like this is the moment you realize how manipulative you are. Not only manipulating the adults around him, but the way he will manipulate the children. This was definitely a moment where you recognize that Lewis definitely was like A1 at manipulation. So he reintroduces Eve to Mrs. Monroe. And he asked her to go and make him a drink. And Maddie seemed like she was upset that he had to talk to his daughter after they got caught fucking in the carriage house. I said, Maddie, if you don't take your whole ass on somewhere, sitting up there mad because this man has to deal with his daughter, like she did that at the end of the movie too, showing complete aggravation because his children have come and interrupted her getting Lewis's doctor dick. He tells her that he loves her mother and he will always love her mother, always. And she asks how come he never dances with her at parties and he only dances with her privately. Y'all, that was very hurtful to me. Like, I don't know why, but for some reason, that resonated like a motherfucker with me when she said, you only dance with me in private, as if he couldn't show the same amount of love to Eve in public as he did in private, almost making a side chick out of his daughters. Like, I don't know what that's about, but that's basically what it feels like. It feels like you have to hide the love that you show to Eve because you know that not only may Roz be slightly jealous, but you know Cicely is going to be extremely jealous. So he says from now on, he will dance with her at every party. And it was obvious that he was so happy that Eve had, removed that whole conversation of him sleeping with Maddie, that had been removed completely. Now she's back to what she originally was upset about, which was feeling as if she was always being chose last or not chosen at all. Very reflective of the way her mother feels about him constantly having to leave the house and go see his patients. I'm using quotation marks. So her mom comes outside and says, it's time for her to go to bed. All her cohorts have now gone up to bed so that they can get into their pajamas. And Roz can tell that something is wrong, but she keeps a smile on her face the entire time she's looking at her daughter very quizzically. And, she waits until she kisses her goodnight to ask Lewis what happened. Like, what's going on here? And Lewis says, oh, she'll be all right. She asks if he's coming in and he says in a minute. She knows something is wrong, but she smiles and she goes inside because that's what the wives do. They just listen to their husbands, blindly so. You see something ain't right, but you're just going to keep on smiling. I thought that was another moment where you're just seeing these people's personalities so early on in these very small moments. You just kind of, if you're paying attention, then you can see it. Yes, thank you, Miss Lady, for pointing out that him saying he'll dance with her at all of the parties seemed like a bribe. Yeah, like I'll dance with you in public if you keep this our secret. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. He only knows how to show full attention / affection to one woman at a time. Yes. It gives black sheep vibes, a recipe for the outcast. Yep. So moving on from there, y'all, when Eve goes upstairs, she's still upset. And I thought that was very interesting as well. She's a little girl, you guys. Eve is only 11 years old, and she understood enough to pretend as if nothing was wrong, goes upstairs, and now she's completely upset again. A terrible burden to put on a child. So many burdens to put on a child. Once we really get down to a child, okay? But like I said, when Eve goes upstairs, she's still upset. And Cicely asks what's wrong with her, and she tells her that she saw Daddy and Mrs. Marrero together. Cicely instantly goes to, it's not true. Daddy wouldn't touch that cow. Cicely then retells her the story and says that, let me explain to you how it went. And this right here was a key moment because it showed you the way Cicely can retell a story to fit the picture she wants to paint. So she knows that it's her job. Already at 14 years old, she knows it's her job to protect her father's image at all costs. As soon as she heard what Eve said, she knew it was true, But she knew her job was to tell Eve that it wasn't true. Because Eve is younger and Eve can't keep these secrets like she can. I'm more than sure conversations have been had, right? So Cicely then explains this is what happened. You were sleeping. Daddy and Miss Monroe come in to get some bottles of wine. He tells her a funny joke. She falls against his chest. They're drunk. They accidentally knock something over. That's what you saw. That's all it was. She's certain of the way Eve saw things. And I think that should let you know two things. Cicely is going to protect her father, but also that Cicely can lie and retell a story to fit her benefit. Okay? Yes, something that she learned from him. Somebody said Lewis was grooming his children. Ooh, Cicely was her daddy in female form. Absolutely. Cicely wanted to be her mother. That's another thing. Cicely was male identified, like the patriarchal Southern belle trope. Absolutely. Absolutely. With the way she carried herself. You could tell it was about appearances and putting forth the perfect little girl vibe for everybody. And you have to put forth that performance for your father. So you can always be his favorite. So just think about the fact that Cicely at 14 years old is having to project herself in a certain way to receive her father's love and admiration. Like already, you know to change yourself and to be a certain way for a man. So when I tell y'all that all of us women grew up centering men in our lives, so much so that we have no idea what our personality would look like if we weren't always centering some man in the situation. As a child, centering your father in this patriarchal system, centering him, covering him, even though you're the child. I don't know about everybody else, but I know a lot about having to do adult things as a child, like protect adults, like keep secrets that are extremely harmful to you. But you have to be quiet. And you learn at an early age, your job is to also protect this man, protect this imagery. It is, I mean, listen, it happens. Well, say by including the absence of men. That's another thing when they're not there. Them not being there makes them, like the hole that you're always trying to fill. Therefore, censoring them still, even when they're not there. So, child, let's move on because y'all know it's a lot that happened. We ain't even cut through the first 20 minutes yet. Downstairs, Harry and Lewis are drunk and fighting over Harry's keys. Roz and Mazel are trying to separate them and get the keys from Harry's drunk ass at the same time. Ain't it funny? Yeah, this is hilarious to me. We always want to talk about women's mouths, but often, what do women have to do? Do this. Be the designated driver. Stop the men from fighting. Even though they wasn't really going to fight, they was drunk enough to do so. But it's just watching them be out of control of themselves while the women have to be in some type of mothering role, even to their men. Why everybody ain't drunk right now? You notice that? Everybody's not drunk. The two men are though. Okay? So Cicely and Eve come downstairs, and Cicely, as if she's the adult, screams for them to hush before they wake the dead. This was a moment that was very annoying to me because I understand allowing your children to, speak up for themselves and say how they feel and all of this. But there was an energy about Cicely that they allowed her to act as if she was an adult along with everybody else. Why do you think you can come downstairs and tell the four adults that they need to hush before they wake the dead as if you're Grandmere? So Roz tells Cicely it's past her bedtime and she's not dressed and she needs to go back inside. But she says, not until Daddy comes inside. Excuse me? See, yeah, all of that would have been an issue for me. All of that would have been an issue for me, girl. I would have been like, Cicely, if you don't take your ass upstairs, we're going to have a problem. I got my husband. I got him. Like it definitely would have been a moment of, do you want to do this with me or not? Because you can just go upstairs, or you can do this with me and we can see whose ass is gonna get whipped because it won't be mine. Like it, that was a moment. Catch that shit. And they never corrected her. They allowed for Cicely to act as if she was more grown than them. So Mizell gets Harry in the car and they drive away. That night, Eve had a dream that Uncle Harry still ended up dying in a car crash, even though he wasn't the one driving. After she lays flowers on his grave, she goes to Mizell's, who is distraught and lying in the bed crying. Eve gets her up, gets a dress, combs her hair, and she looks in the mirror and we see her three dead husbands. Mizell has buried three husbands in her lifetime, and this is now her third. So now she's going into mourning. The entire movie, Mizell will wear all black. Okay, I believe up until like that last scene, um, when they were by the tree, but I could be wrong. Okay. Either way, but that's what people used to do back in the day. Your husband died, but you're in mourning. You're wearing black for the rest of your life. Okay. So Eve asked which of them she loved the most. And she says they were all different. Anderson, the first husband, was the handsomest. Harry was the sweetest. And Maynard loved her most of all. She says even before she did the counseling, because that's what her sessions are, counseling. And it's so funny because I feel like whenever I go and get a card reading, by any of the girls that I really like to get readings by, it usually does feel very similar to my therapy sessions. Okay. So it very much is counseling. So she says even before she did the counseling, she could look at people and see their lives so clear. But she looked at each of her husbands and never saw a thing. That's the way it always is, blind to my own life, she said. Her client comes in, she's gotten herself together, and Mizell does exactly what she has to do for the day, even though we just saw her distraught in the bed not too long ago, which is another depiction of how women would still do what they had to do, regardless of what traumatized them. You just got to keep going. And I'm like, yeah, that's what we were taught. Okay, just keep going, child. You only got a little while to be hurt behind something. Okay. So her client came in and we get to see her at work. The client puts her hands in Mizell's hands. And she says that she was looking for her son, I believe. I can't find my son. I don't know what happened to my son. He's been missing. And she can't take it anymore. She has to know. Mizell closes her eyes and we see her visions in black and white, just kind of strips. You don't really see any full picture, but you just kind of see these shots in black and white. And what we see is a woman's son in the bathroom putting a needle in his arm. And she says he's alive. You'll find him in Detroit at St. Michael's Hospital next Tuesday. She tells her to go home and pay for strength. Then another woman whose niece has spent all of her money. She gives her a recipe for a spell to help her. After Eve says that she told daddy she doesn't do voodoo anymore. And she was like, the lady was desperate. Eve asks if she thinks the spell will work. And Mizell says, only time will tell. So she wore blue too. I saw black for most, like almost every outfit I saw black. I must have missed the blue. It's definitely therapeutic. Yes. Let me see what else. But low key, that was Ra's fault as the real lady of the house for not checking Cicely. Exactly. This moment reminds me of the scene of the divine intervention of the Yaya sisterhood, where the mother was mad at the daughter because the father treated her better. Oh yeah. I haven't seen that movie in a long time. So when they get back to Eve's house, Roz is crying and distraught. Apparently, some woman called the house behind Lewis. Eve and Poe stood by on the stairwell, eavesdropping until Cicely ran them away so she can take their spot listening. Okay. Louis comes in the door and she tries to warn him, Daddy, they're mad. Don't go in there. And she was like, he says, who's mad, baby? Like with a smile on his face, and just pushes her out the way. And he looks into the room and he sees Mazel, his mom, and Roz all sitting there upset talking about this woman that called the house. He looks in on them and laughs and says, they always mad. Y'all, that was his mama, his sister, and his wife. Not like the times of today. Okay? It's not like the times of today where, you know, a man will cheat on his woman and his side of the family just goes along with it and act like ain't nothing wrong. Okay? No, they was upset on Rye's behalf because it's about the family. Once you've married this woman and created this family with her, it's about doing what's right by your family, not us ignoring how you're wrong because you're our connection to the family. And I love that. I love the fact that at the end of the day, even his sister, who made a lot of allowances for him because she felt like they were so much alike, was still looking at him like, boy, what the is going on? Okay? Just disrespectful as shit. But it was so funny to me how we never really got to hear Roz complaining about what happened to them. Because it's from the point of view of Eve, we never got to really hear Roz have these conversations with Louis. And I'm kind of mad at that, but I get it, you know? Roz said, tell her, well, I got 3 babies over here. I don't like the kinship of, about family they had back then. I do like, yes. I got you. You do like it. Got you. Okay. So Louis, the next day, takes Eve on his house calls. Okay. It's the 50s. I didn't even know doctors still did house calls back then, but they sure did. Okay. So first they go see the woman that Mazel gave the recipe for the Gree bag to. She's supposed to keep that Gree bag close to her chest. And you know, Louis comes over, check her pressure, make sure she's taking her medication. And, you know, she like, oh, Lord, everything gonna be just fine. She hold on to that bag. Then Stevie, who was just fine, but pretending to be sick so that she can ask for help for her pain. What pain might that be, child? We don't know. But Louis asked for Eve to wait outside. When he rejoins her, Eve asked him, does he want more kids? And he was like, no, I'm good with just the 3 of you. And he says, no, I don't mean like, you know, from us, but kids from somebody else. And he bends down and looks at her ears. He looks at her eyes and he says, well, I can't see any reason why you would say such a foolish thing. You look healthy. Basically letting her know that that was foolish and craziness for her to ask if he wanted a family outside of their own. It's obvious that the kids are scared that their dad is going to leave their family. The mom, Roz, is getting more and more upset, bothered. It's getting harder for her to smile and ignore all of the cheating because he's doing it so disrespectfully in front of everybody. Eve's Bayou is a very small town, so small that we don't even really see any interactions with white people, which was a blessing, to tell you the truth. The fact that these people could live unobstructed by racism, even though we know they probably dealt with it, but we didn't see it anywhere in the movie. And I really love that aspect of this as well. But he was going around having sex with all of these women who he was also seeing. And as you can see at the beginning of the movie, everybody was already talking about him and Maddie. So it's only a matter of time, I guess, before he leaves, runs off, or whatever. That's how everybody feels. Which makes me think, I was like, I don't think he was ever going to leave. I think that he, you know, he liked being where he was. I think he loved Roz. I think he thought she was beautiful and a showman's piece and all of that shit. But essentially, he was always going to want more than one woman. I don't think he would have ever left her to go and be with some other woman because it wasn't about the fact that Roz wasn't good enough. It was about the fact that Louis needed to feel good enough. And the only thing that made him feel good like that was all of those women, you know, trying to get his dick and his attention, because child, that lady looked like she called that man over there for some dick and she needed it now. The daughter is standing outside the door and y'all still gonna fuck. I was just like, oh wow. Oh wow. Anyway, he was like, well, baby, I gotta go back to the hospital, so I'll take you home. And she was like, come on, daddy, please. And he says, all right, well, I'll race you to the hospital. There was so many times where he's smiling at Eve and she runs off or looks away, walks away, whatever, and his smile goes to a serious face. And I often wondered what his thoughts were. He seemed to love his children. He did. But I wondered if it upset him how astute Eve was. Eve was sharp, picked up on a lot, and was honest enough to ask questions and say things. She had not learned yet that it was all, that everything was supposed to be about protecting the image like Cicely. She doesn't have that yet. She gonna get it though. After the daddy die, I feel like that's the lesson she'll learn, to be more reserved with the things that she sees and understands over time. Eve has a gift. Eve has the same gift as Mazel, the gift of sight. So she knows what is going on, not just because it's happening around her, but because she also has a sixth sense. So I think the dad, Lewis, knowing that his sister has the same sixth sense and it's in their family, even though they try to act like it's not real. Lewis specifically tries to act like Mazel is just crazy and they just allow her to do the counseling sessions to keep her busy. But we all know that the gift was real, absolutely real. And so he knows that. So I think that he would get tired of how Eve would so easily pick up on his lies. He's thinking this should be easy. This is my middle child. This is my younger child. This should be easy to lie to her, but it's not. So Roz and Mazel talk about, take a walk, and they talk about how Lewis knows how to fix things. That's what made Roz fall in love with him. He knew how to fix things. He become, this young man becoming a doctor. And she said, hopefully, he could fix me. That's what she thought. And then, she realized that he fixing everybody. And she hopes that he'll fix whatever was wrong with the woman who called their household. She left her family and came to a swamp to find out that he wasn't the healer she thought he was, just a man. And I'm like, like we figured it out. Like the rose-colored glasses have fallen off. Mazel says she and her brother are one and the same. She would say that often throughout the movie, that they were so much alike. They were one and the same. And she says one day he'll look at you, Roz. He'll turn around and see you for who you are, and he'll stop looking for what he already has. And even though I felt like on some level this was true, you know what I'm saying? Like on some level, there could be a moment where he looked at her later in life and felt like, all right, I'm done, But essentially, I felt like it was bullshit. I feel like it was something you told your sister-in-law when she was asking for your counsel, to protect your brother, to keep his family intact, even though you know that he's going to continue to have sex with as many women as he possibly can until he can no longer do it. And then when he can't do it anymore, then he'll be resigned to want to sit his ass down somewhere and only be with Roz after doing her so much damage, embarrassing her in front of everybody, fucking on all of the women in y'all's community. Then you'll turn around when you're old and tired and want to give Roz the man she's been waiting for all these years. Mazel absolutely, I feel like, was trying to keep her brother's family intact for him, even though she knew that he was on bullshit. Mazel and Lewis are both healers. He's a doctor and she's a seer. That's why he sent Mazel that letter in the end. He knew what happened and why, and wanted to assure Eve that he loved her, the dance he owes her. Yes. We're going to get to that, y'all. Don't rush ahead. Okay. So they go to the market and Roz wants to get her fortune told by Elzora. Elzora is played by, y'all know, I'm spacing right now. I don't know. Child, why am I spacing on this lady's name? Like, I don't know this lady's name. It's because my mind is all over the place right now, y'all, trying to do a million things at one time. Okay. But either way, I know somebody gonna put it in the comments. But Elzora is absolutely like voodoo priestess vibes in the way that Mazel Diane Carroll, thank y'all. Diane Carroll is playing Elzora. And to me, this was like the first time we seen Diane Carroll play somebody that wasn't pristine since Claudine, since like the 70s. So Mazel sees Elzora like a sideshow attraction, not as real as what she does. So Mazel stands back while Elzora gives Roz her fortune. So Roz sits down and Elzora tells her to empty the bag of bones that she sits on the table. She empties the bones. Elzora looks through the bones and she says, "You're in pain. There's an end to your pain, but not the way you expected. Sometimes a soldier falls on his own sword. In 3 years' time, you will be happy again. Look to your children." Roz wasn't happy with what she said. That wasn't good enough. But Mazel heard something that rang true. And her interest was piqued. So she goes to sit down and she puts her dollar in the jar first. Normally, people would get their fortune told, then they put their dollar in the jar. But Mazel came and took that dollar out with her head held up high, put the dollar in, and then sat down. Like, now tell me mine, since you know so much. Elzora knows who Mazel is. Elzora says some things are better left unsaid. She said, "I paid you to tell my fortune, old woman. So tell my fortune." She says, "You are a curse. Next man that marries you is a dead man. Always be that way." Mazel screams, "You old, old, dying witch." She runs out in front of a bus, dazed and confused, and has a vision that causes her to pass out on the street. This vision was of a child being hit by a bus. They rush home worried that one of the children could have been their own. It could have been Poe, it could have been Cicely, it could have been Eve. So they rush home, and y'all, I love their house. I love their house. This large willow tree out in the front. You know what I'm saying? These kids are all, playing by the bayou. It's just a beautiful, beautiful setting. And when Mazel and Roz come running all over the property looking for the kids, okay, they push them all inside. Everybody's all scared, like, what the hell is going on? And we find out when Roz sits down with Lewis that Mazel had a vision of a child being hit, so she wants to keep the kids inside all summer. Lewis thinks that's crazy. Lewis says his sister has, is not, he said, my sister is familiar with the inside of a mental hospital, correct? Like, why are you taking her so seriously? And his mother says, "Mazel may be crazy, but those visions always come true." I said, "I know that's right, mama. Don't be sitting up there calling my daughter crazy." Cicely goes and gets her father the paper because everybody's sitting down at the dining room table, Sunday dinner. And she hands the paper to her father, but she has this look of disgust on her face about Roz wanting to keep them inside. And she says, "What if we just don't play in traffic, mother?" Roz says, "Don't be using that tone with me or rolling your eyes behind my head to your father." She says, "You're looking right at us, mama. Nothing ever happens behind your back." Now, see, in this moment right here, everybody should have been checking Cicely, but only Grandmere tells Cicely not to speak to Roz that way. She not too old to get hit. And Lewis tells his mother not to threaten his child. Eve said, "You let her threaten me." So you're going to let Cicely disrespect Roz. You're going to check your mama talking about don't threaten my children, but then you allow her to threaten Eve. Another moment for Eve to feel like she's not as loved. Grandmere has had enough of children being involved in grown folks' conversations. And in her day, they were grateful for warnings and signs. And I know that's right. That was something that resonated for me too. Like, God gives people gifts. It's not always, all of this extra shit. Sometimes it's the dreams, sometimes it's visions, but sometimes God will, try to tell you something if you're paying attention. Lewis on a Sunday has to go see some patients. Roz asks why they can't wait for a day. And Lewis says sickness isn't a 5 day a week type thing, Roz. Eve says because some illnesses are hard to put a finger on, right, Daddy? Which is what he told her when she asked what was wrong with the woman who he had to give some dick to while she waited outside. Roz asks which patient he's going to see. And he tells her to go and get her palm read. Oh, so you're going to play on her intelligence, huh? You heard she went and got her palm read. Mizell, huh? Or did she tell him that part? Because I feel like I don't even know if she told him that or if Mizell told him that. Okay. But either way, it was to play on her intelligence. If you want to call her stupid, when we know good and goddamn well, it's the last thing she is right now in this moment. She not stupid. She clocked you. She know what you're going to do. Your daughters know what you're going to do. Both of them have said things that incriminated Lewis. Cicely thought that she was saying something to hurt her mama, but nothing ever happens in front of you, mama. Girl, you insinuating that shit is always happening in front of your mama's face. And she just sits there and smiles. I almost feel like on some level, Cicely feels like she would probably handle her father cheating on her better than her mother does. Girl, crazy as hell. Roz, not that part. Hold on. Let me get back to where I was, girl. Cicely goes back into the dining room and asks her mother if she thinks she's being a little immature, not letting us go outside, telling daddy not to go to work. What's wrong with you? Y'all, in this moment right here, I would have smacked the taste out of Cicely's mouth. I would have. I don't believe in hitting children. I would like to be a gentle parent. But if you ever in your motherfucking life think you will stand in front of me like you push me out your coochie and ask me what's wrong with me when I'm questioning my husband about why he can't spend time with us, you're going to get hit. I'm sorry. Because you grown, right? So you should be able to take this ass whooping you about to get. Since you think you grown enough to chest up to me and ask me what's wrong with me. Girl, what the hell wrong with you? And who the hell you talking to? Girl, listen, this is one of them times you wish Lynn Whitfield, the villain would come out, okay? Because this is one of the movies that Lynn Whitfield was not a villain. And we wish that she would have been, okay? Roz walks over to her and says, if you're lucky, you might live long enough to have a husband and children of your own. But until then, this is my house. Do you understand me? No one leaves this house until I say so. Yes, ma'am. Oh, I know, yes, ma'am. So the kids stay in the house and go stir crazy, seemingly for weeks. Cicely is in the bathroom for hours. We don't know why at this point. But Eve is tired, okay? Eve decides because Cicely is in the bathroom for 5 hours today, she's going to torture Poe by putting a fake snake next to his face while he's taking a nap. Poe so cute. Roz is downstairs nervous as hell because her husband is never home and she's chopping vegetables. Cuts her finger. This obviously isn't the first time she's cut her finger. Eve is running around being annoying, and when Poe starts screaming about the fake snake, Mizell comes walking in with board games. She says, did I walk in the middle of a cyclone? Eve is cussing about how Cicely won't get out of the damn tub. Eve says, Mama keeps stabbing herself in the finger and Daddy is never home. He's supposed to be home sometimes, ain't he? Her mom says her father works very hard for them to have 4 bathrooms in this house. And Eve says, not every night he ain't working. I know he's not. Once again, the children are throwing it in their mother's face that the daddy is out here being a hoe, as if the woman calling the house, him never being home, and all of the other gossip around town isn't enough Her own children are throwing it in her face that Lewis is out here fucking on everybody. Child. Mizell snatches Eve away and she asks if that's her idea of being a good daughter. And this is when I love Mizell. I love Mizell for this. Eve tells her, I saw Daddy and Miss Monroe together. Mizell tells her, the cigarette in her mouth, all nervous and shit. If you tell anyone, I will kill you. And then I was mad at Mizell all over again. And then she tells her, if you get careless with your mother's feelings again, I will do you harm. She says, me and your father are a lot alike. And then she tells her the story about what happened with Maynard. She tells her she didn't know that her second husband, Maynard, loved her the most until she met Hosea. She says Hosea would make her feel like her whole body was burning. If Maynard knew, he never said a word. And one night, Hosea showed up and told her to pack her bags. She was leaving with him. And she went up there to pack her bags and she heard Maynard speak in a voice she had never heard before. And he pulled a gun on her husband. But Maynard walked up to the gun and told him, my wife ain't going nowhere with you. So do what you gonna do. Mizell walked into the room and he says, Mizell, tell this man you ain't going nowhere with him so he can leave our house right the fuck now. And she walks over and stands next to her husband and she says, please leave our home. I never want to see you again. And Hosea looked at her and said, okay, and shot Maynard in the chest. She said, I was alone for a while after that. Y'all, this story, there's so many things about Mizell that I feel like were amazing. Like you're a woman in the 50s. You're, a widow. Obviously, you're a widow. But you're a counselor. And you're a woman in charge of yourself, in charge of your own life, in charge of your home. When Mizell finds a man, they fit into her life. She doesn't fit into their life, right? So the story that she tells really is trying to tell Eve that your daddy ain't different from me because I've been in situations like this before myself. It didn't end, as easily as this situation might end, but I felt like it was like a foreshadowing that somebody was going to have to die because of a love triangle. Even though this wasn't really a love triangle, Maddie was the main, but she wasn't the only. They called her the Black Widow because she was. It reminds me of Practical Magic. Whenever there's a woman that has an intense gift, she has to pay in her romantic life. And I don't know if that's like a sign of the patriarchy, like the patriarchy always wants you to see strong, independent, older women as sad in some capacity. So even though Mizell was extremely impressive and beautiful and obviously lived a really good life, it was still like something had to be wrong with her. And her not being able to keep a man is one of those things. It was crazy. It wasn't crazy. I lived a similar story. My ex didn't accept any man I dated after him. 10 years later, he still stalks me. Ooh, girl. You're doing such a good job telling this story. Thank you. I appreciate y'all. Thank you. Most spiritual women have checkered love lives. Yes, they do. Beyonce said it's a blessing and a curse. I know that's right. I love the way you reenact the story while the way they reenact the story while she's telling it. Yes, because they're looking into the mirror and she walks into the mirror and takes her spot while telling the story in the story. Very, very beautifully done. Yes, Practical Magic. Every time they would fall in love, it would end as it seemed as quickly as it began, and they called it a curse. Exactly. So this is the exact same thing, in that way. All right. So moving on from there, where was I after she finished telling her that story? So y'all, Cicely is waiting up reading for Louis to come home one night when, he's coming home from giving that peen out to whoever. And Eve comes down just as Louis walks in. Cicely is jealous, and is jealous because he tells her and Eve to go to bed. See, if Eve would have stayed upstairs, then she would have had her alone time with Daddy. But when Eve comes running downstairs, that ruins it. So now she walks away pissed off. Everybody's vying for Daddy's attention. The women out in the street, and then when he comes home, he got his daughters and his wife fighting over his attention. Thank you, Natalie, for becoming a member. Thank you. One day in the rain, Mazel is playing her piano when a stranger comes to her door with long white hair and a paint set. He asks for her. And says he's Julian Gray Raven. He's looking to get his fortune told. He's been looking for his wife. He can't continue, but he can't stop until he knows, where is my wife? And it's so funny to me because I feel like this was the realest shit to show you how most grown people have the same things going on in their romantic lives. You either in a good place, on your way to the bad place, or you in a good place coming from the bad place. Okay? But that's literally the dynamics of almost everybody's relationship. So Julian Gray Raven is no different. Mazel sees the vision of his wife laid up in a bed with some other man that she's taken to. So then we see him obviously repaying her by painting her portrait. And y'all, this is when music finally comes into the scene for me in a real way. I want a Sunday kind of love. A love to last past Saturday night. And I like to know it's more than love at first sight. I need a Sunday kind of love. Oh yeah, I want a love that's on the square. Can't seem to find someone to care. And I'm on the lonely road that leads to nowhere. I'll need a Sunday kind of love. Listen, I love me some Etta James, okay? When he went away, the blues walked in and met me. Oh, yeah, if he stays away, oh, rocking chair's gonna get me. All I do is pray the Lord will let me walk in the sun once more. Can't go on, can't go on, can't go on. Listen, I can't go on, girl. But I love it. I love it. It set the tone because after he was done painting her, they made love. And Julian Gray Raven became Mazel's new man. Okay. Cicely went missing. What the hell? Everybody's supposed to be in the house. It's storming. And Cicely's ass is nowhere to be found. Roz is on the phone with the police, wondering what the hell is going on. And then here comes Cicely walking in the door. She didn't went to the beauty parlor. She walked in. I went to see Daddy. And then I took 2 buses and walked over the train tracks and went to the beauty parlor and got my hair done. You like it, Mama? Oh, yeah? Girl. Not only is she telling her mama, look, Mama, you were wrong. Ain't nothing happened to me. You didn't know. You thought you knew, but you didn't know. And I went to see Daddy, which means you can't really be mad at me because I can see my daddy whenever I want to, whether you like it or not. And I went and got my hair cut like yours so I can stop looking like a little girl. so I can look grown like I think I am. That's all that was, child. And when she walked up to her mama like that, and her mama, girl, mama slapped the shit out of her. Okay? Okay, Rod slapped the shit out of her. I said, about time. About time. She been due for a slapping now. Thank you, Logo Streets, for becoming a member. I appreciate you, love. So, where was I? Cicely walks away. Later, Eve goes to her and they hold each other and cry. And it was crazy because I feel like even though Cicely and Eve had this sibling rivalry thing, they were still very close and best friends. But we didn't see it often because Cicely was always trying to be grown. But Cicely is turning 14, y'all. So I want everybody to remember that she's like literally going through puberty right now, which is why she's acting like this. Well, on top of the fact that her father has emboldened her to feel as if she is just as grown as her mother. And that was his mistake for sure. Okay. That night, Cicely goes to wait up for Lewis in his chair. But her mother is already there. And she says, Cicely, when I was your age, I was just like you. I thought I knew everything. But even now, the things I'm most familiar with seem mysterious. But I know I love you, and it's my job to protect you. And if you disobey me again, I will lock you in your room. I don't want you waiting up for your father anymore. I'm going to wait up for him. Child, Cicely was upset, but Rod said, go to bed, Cicely. When Lewis finally does come home, we hear the roars of them screaming and arguing with each other. Obviously, one more night he done went out there in the streets and she got to deal with the ramifications of it. And they fighting and screaming while the storm is thundering outside. And the last shot we see of that night is the thunderclap and Eve waking up. The next day, Julian tells Mazel that he has to find his wife, and she looks upset. And she says, well, I told you, Julian, that she has fallen in love with another man. And he says, I have to go and find my wife so that I can divorce her, so that I can marry you. She tells him that she can't marry him because she's cursed and she's barren. She can't have children. And he says, you're not barren, you're wounded. And in that place, I will plant seeds. Y'all, listen, they gave us very small pieces. But to me, that man was telling her, I don't care how broken you think you are, I will put you back together. Do you hear me? And I was just kind of like, oh, girl. Oh, girl. Oh, Lord. You know what I'm saying, girl? You better go ahead and make it work with Julian, girl, but don't marry him so we don't die. Okay? Talk about weeping as an adult. Cicely thought Lewis was her man, but that's Rod's man. Okay, yes, the Oedipus complex. Okay? So just as they kiss, in this moment, they're having this romantic moment, and then yes, definitely divine masculine. Absolutely, God says yes. you absolutely right. Okay, so then they hear the bus hitting a child, and everyone rejoices that now what Mazel saw in her vision has come true, and now everybody can be free again. Grandmere says it's not right to celebrate when somebody else's child is dead. And I said, I know that's right, Grandmere. What the hell wrong with them? Won't have a barbecue and shit like the people next door baby ain't dead. Eve goes upstairs and sees Cicely's bloody underwear on the side of the bed and screams, Cicely's got a period! Cicely's got a period! Well, this turns into just a little sister being annoying to Cicely, chasing her out into the yard and strangling Eve. And Julian having to come and pick her up and bring her in the house. When Louis finally gets there, he comes running up the stairs, and Roz is like, I wonder if it's my fault because I slapped her, that day in the storm. And he tells her it's not. He's going to go and check on her. And Roz says, she started her period. Did you know that? He says, no. He goes in and she's laying on Mazelle's lap. And she says, no, Daddy, I don't want you to look at me. And he says he'll get a woman doctor in town to look at her. I was not sure if she was ashamed because her period had started, or if she was ashamed and upset, or not even ashamed, but upset at him for what happened the night before. So I think it was one of those two things. Either she was ashamed or she was mad at him, or both. But it didn't seem like the anger that I feel like I know she had towards him based on what happened the night before. But we don't know what happened the night before just yet. So Eve goes to the market and ends up stealing a pineapple. And she runs up to Elzora, who calls her bad girl, pineapple thief. And Elzora scared the shit out of Eve. So she drops the pineapple and she runs away. Cicely is still upset. Roz tells Louis that she thinks I'm driving you away, Louis. It's a conversation that Roz is having with Louis. And she's basically saying that Cicely is angry with her and thinks that she's pushing Louis away. It's almost like she's sleepwalking. So we don't know what happened. If, what happened harmed her. Like, we just don't know. Like, is it her period? Like, we don't know what's going on. We just know that something happened and Cicely's acting different and nobody understands why. So Louis and Roz talked to her about going away for treatment. And it didn't seem like something they really wanted for her to do, but they were offering it to her. And she says that she wants to go. Obviously, they didn't want her to go because they both seemed kind of sad when she said she wanted to go. But they decided they're going to send her to Roz's mother's house for a little while. Eve says that she doesn't want her to leave. And if she does, she'll die. And she cries to Cicely, why won't you talk to me? Why won't you tell me what's going on? This is when they're alone. And she asks if it's something that she did. And finally, child, Cicely's dramatic as fuck because the whole time she's just staring out the window like she didn't been through it all, child. Okay, like a Mary J. Blige album, staring out the window. And she says, of course it's not you, Rabbit. Like, oh, now you want to talk? Thank you for becoming a member, Lisa. It's greatly appreciated. She tells her about the night of the storm, and she says she went to see Louis at his office that day, and that's what Roz and Daddy, she was like, that's what Mom and Dad were fighting about Maddie Monroe. She didn't say, but to me, it sounded like when Cicely went to the office the day it rained, the storm, the day she got a haircut, she went to see her daddy at his office, and he was there with Maddie. Maddie hangs around his office all the time, apparently. And so whatever happened, she eventually told her mama about it. We just didn't see it. Eve says, now you believe me, don't you? And she says, I believed you then. She says, after they fought, Mama and Daddy, she went downstairs, ignoring her mom telling her to take her ass to bed. She was afraid that he would divorce them, not divorce Roz, divorce them. She wanted to make him feel better, so she started rubbing his shoulders. And she sat on his lap, and she said she was scared, but she kissed him. And then he kissed her, and he was hugging her, and she was trying to get away, so she kicked him. And he slapped her and pushed her to the ground. Eve says, she'll kill him for hurting her. I'll kill him for hurting you. She was like, he hurt me so bad. And it seemed as if the lines had been blurred And the daddy, out of his drunkenness, may have gotten confused, or maybe he took advantage of her. We didn't know what was going on really, but in this moment, it felt like the daddy was trying to her. Okay, I'm not going to say the word. But Eve now knows. Eve is now angry on her sister's behalf. Very, very weird the way that happened. Also weird the way we didn't really see the relationship between Cicely and Eve until this moment. Until right around this time. This is when we see the closeness between Cicely and Eve. Because before then, it was more like Cicely is the head and everybody follows behind her, and you feel a little jealous of the position she has in you guys' family, which sometimes even is a position higher than your mother. So Cicely is supposed to be leaving to go to the grandmother's house, and Roz is going to get her settled. She does this, here, because of the lips. And Mazel sees this. Mazel, like, what the hell is going on here? But she doesn't say anything in the moment. Louis was supposed to come back before dinner, but he didn't. And Eve waited up for him. Mazel says maybe he got caught in traffic. Eve says it's Sunday. Mazel tells her they will be back, Louis and Cicely. She says she hopes there's a divine explanation for it all, because if not, that's so sad. Funny way Mazel would be talking in front of Eve and then completely forget that she was there. And as a child, y'all, I was Eve. I don't know if y'all know, but I'm gonna have to tell y'all. That's a lot of reasons why I resonate with this story so much. I was this child. I was the child that didn't get all of the attention like that. And also I was like the more, the child people could just kind of relax around. I wasn't really high strung, and I was quiet. So I, a lot of times would hear and be paying attention the same way Eve does. So in this moment when Mazel kind of forgets that she's even there while she's talking to her, I was like, child, people used to forget I was in the room all the time. You get quiet enough and they'll forget that you're there. And they start saying shit in front of you. And now all of a sudden, you paying attention, but you acting like you're not. Okay. So I very much was that kid. Eve asks how to kill someone with voodoo, snaps Mazel out of her trance. When Mazel asks why she asked, Eve won't tell. So she tells her to give her her hands. Give me your hands. But before she could even see it all, Eve barely tapped her hands, barely put them down and yanked them back up, yank them back up. And Mazel was like, fine, I ain't going to pull it out of you. But she saw something. She saw something that bothered her. Then she tells Eve, you can't kill people with voodoo. That's ridiculous. Eve gets some money from Louis billfold and some of his hair from a comb and goes down to the market to see Elzora. She runs into Mr. Marrero first, though. She asks if he's still teaching. He says, yeah, I'm teaching Xavier down there in New Orleans. He tries to make it home so Maddie doesn't get too lonely. And Eve says, oh, Maddie doesn't seem like the lonely type. Mama gets real lonely, but she's the lonely type. Not like Daddy and Maddie. Mr. Marrero went from smiling and, oh, Eve, to that smile being completely gone. Y'all, I'm going to tell y'all, my husband, while we were watching this, he was like, why is he smiling at her like that? And he felt like, why, he's smiling at her. Why you smiling at the little girl like that? Smiling at like you want to fuck her. Like that's basically what my husband peeped. And I was like, that's not why he's smiling like that. He's smiling like that because they want you to see the juxtaposition between this version of him and the version of him at the end of the movie. What Eve said took all of the ignorant bliss that he had. And now he's going to start to see the truth. Her words were a spell. She didn't need to give Elzora $20 of her father's money and his hair in a comb. She didn't need to do any of that. She set everything in motion when she spoke to Mr. Monroe and told him how Maddie and her daddy were alike. You put enough emphasis, he got it. So, however, I still feel like it reminded me how as I got older in my teen years, I was always aware of the fact that old men wanted to fuck me. So, I mean, not just old men, but I feel like you just kind of become aware that somebody wants to, snatch your pocketbook, your pocketbook. Like you just become aware of that at a very young age, that you have something that people want to take from you. And you have to be very, very clear on how you handle yourself, even as a little girl. Even as a little girl. They call you fast and all of that. And now you have to overcorrect yourself because of the grown men that may take advantage of you. Very problematic, but it was something that I feel like was very subtle, very, very subtle. But I think it was on purpose because I think as a young girl growing up, those are your feelings. That's how you think sometimes. That's the underlying kind of, can I be okay around this man thing? I feel like even as an adult, if I don't know a man, I assume I'm not safe until you prove that I am safe. Like, I don't know why, but that's my natural feeling. And as a child growing up, I was always made aware that I was not safe around everybody. So, just something that I clocked in that moment that, when we're talking about telling a story from a child's point of view, you're still telling it from a girl child's point of view. And at 11 years old, you start to, the age that she is in the movie, you really start to be made aware of the fact that these old men look at you and it makes you feel like you can't look back at them. I'm an adult and I barely make eye contact with men on purpose because eye contact feels like an invitation even when it's not. Like they look through you. Yes. Yes. Like it definitely, was something that was subtle right there, but real to the experience of you as a young woman at 11. You know what I'm saying? So Eve rolls up on Elzora with 20 instead of $1, and she brings Eve to her office. They take a nice long walk to her house. They eat soup and discuss Eve wanting someone dead. She asks if Eve is sure. And she says, yes, she's sure. So she says she'll need hair. She brings out the hair. Elzora smiles as if it is merely a game. Eve goes home to stick pins in a stuffed animal, thinking that Elzora was going to create some type of voodoo doll to give to her, and then she was going to be able to inflict the pain on her father. But oh no, giving her the hair and saying that you wanted it done, that was all you needed to do. Thursday night, when she was supposed to go back to Elzora, says, did it work? She was like, what do you mean, did it work? No, you didn't give me the voodoo doll. She's like, I didn't say nothing about no voodoo doll. I made you a wax coffin and I put his hair inside the mouth of a snake and buried it in a graveyard. He should be dead by now. Eve thought she needed to do it. And now she gets upset and she's like, but I thought I was going to do it. And you guys, if there is a feeling I understand, it is being so angry with your father that you don't wish he was dead, but you wish you weren't around him. You wish you didn't have to be around him. I used to wish all the time that my parents had divorced. I used to wish that was a wish for me growing up. Like, damn, I wish he would divorce this nigga. And I mean, when he died, it was the most traumatic thing ever. And then I started to see, even when he got sick, I started to see things a little bit more clearly. I think I got my reality check with my dad when he got sick. So as much as I was angry with him for how angry he was when I was growing up, when he got sick, all of that shit went away. But the funny part about it is, I feel like I always felt the need to protect my father in the same way that Eve feels the need to protect hers. Always. You just always feel the need at some point to protect them, even when they hurt you. She didn't want to kill him, but she wanted to be able to hurt him. And now finding out that it is as good as done, all the regret, all the pain, and all the hurt just comes rushing in. Elzora just laughs because Elzora didn't really do anything. Voodoo can't kill people. She didn't do anything to kill Lewis, but Eve did. And Eve knows that on some level that this has already been set in motion. So Eve runs, and I mean runs, okay, to the bar where her father often frequents at night. And her father is in there with Miss Monroe, but she begs him to come home with her. And Maddie looks upset. Their little night has been interrupted. He asked her to wait outside for him. And she was like, hurry up. And she walked out and gave Maddie the eye. Outside, you can see Mr. Monroe walking over the train tracks, almost like he's sleepwalking. Passes Eve and doesn't even speak to her. He goes inside the bar and she runs in behind him. And he asks Lewis, you fucking my wife? He got a 5 o'clock shadow. He is not the same smiling man that we once knew Lenny to be. Lewis laughs him off. That's what Lewis often did. Just laugh people off as if he can play in their face. It was his way of trying to disarm them, but he didn't realize that doesn't work when you've upset people to this extent. Lewis laughs him off, but Lenny says, I loved you, Lewis. And Lewis says, I love you too, Lenny. Lenny says, if you so much as speak to my wife again, I'm going to kill you. They walk out, and Lewis walks out behind them. And he was like, I'll forget all about this tomorrow, old man, when you've slept it off. And he walks off, and Eve is grabbing, come on, Daddy, please, let's just go. And then he says, good night, Maddie. And Lenny turns around and shoots him at least 3 or 4 times and kills him right in front of Eve. The thing about this scene, y'all, was when Lenny said, I loved you, Lewis. Something about that. You were his friend. I think that was the most heartbreaking part of it all. I mean, he'd been breaking his wife's heart the whole time, his daughter's heart the whole time. We didn't even see the relationship between Lenny and Lewis. But when he said that to him, I loved you, Lenny. I loved you, Lewis. And Lewis said, I love you too, Lenny. I was like, that was your friend. Like that was your friend. And you was really like fucking his wife in front of everybody and laughing in his face. I mean, honestly, that had to be the most heartbreaking part to me. Like, I didn't even remember that part when I, watched it all those years ago. But when I watched it again and that man said that shit, that made me want to cry. Like, I totally understood in that moment how distraught he was. And then I think to find it out from his daughter, which means everybody knows you're my friend and you got me looking like a fool to all of the people that know us. Lewis was Lenny's friend, and Lenny expected Lewis to not break his heart and to watch out for his wife. Instead, he broke that man and screwed his wife. Child. And the funny part about it is, I feel like as mad as Lenny wants to be at Lewis, you know who you married on some level. Maddie is very sexual and very outward about it. You know what I'm saying? Like on some level, I feel like he couldn't possibly have thought that lady was not sleeping around on him. The energy she had and how much he left her alone. You know what I'm saying? Like you almost feign this ignorance by choice. And then when you find out the truth and it's heartbreaking, you have this huge reaction and kill somebody behind it. When really you played a part in your ignorance. Why would you even assume that Maddie was being faithful? That's why it was so hurtful who it was. It wasn't that she was unfaithful. It was who it was. So y'all, they have the funeral. And Cicely has to be carried away from the funeral, probably feeling a little bit of guilt of her own. Roz holds her children in the bed as they sleep, tired from grief. Later on, Mizell tells Eve that she dreamt she was flying above herself while she drowned. And she thought, should I save her? But she heard Lewis's voice saying, don't look back. So she kept on flying. She tells Eve Lewis gave her a message for him. Tell Eve I still owe her that dance. Later on, once time has gone by and Eve obviously misses her daddy, she goes into his office and she puts his hat on, puts his tie on, and finds a letter that he wrote to Mizell. He was writing to her after they talked about the accusation of harming his beloved daughter. He says he's only guilty of cheating and indulging in the favoritism. He says the first kiss was innocent, but the second, she kissed him like a woman. And in his drunkenness, it took him a minute to realize what was happening. But when he did, he hit her. And the way she looked at him, he said, I knew I had lost her. He didn't want to hurt her. Hold on. He didn't want to hurt her more by telling Roz and Mizell what had happened. Eve runs to Cicely after reading the letter and tells her, you lied. You lied about what happened with Daddy, and I hated him for you. Cicely says, he hurt me so bad, Eve. And Eve asked her to tell her what happened, and Cicely put her hands in Eve so she can see. But we don't really see a difference between the stories. We just see the kiss and we see the slap. They put the letter in the swamp and watch it melt away. Eve has the gift of sight, but the truth changes color depending on the light. And tomorrow can be clearer than yesterday. Memory is a selection of images, some lucid, others printed indelibly on the brain. Each image is like a thread, each thread woven together to make a tapestry of intricate texture. And the tapestry tells a story, and the story is our past. And that's how it ends, with Cicely and Eve watching that letter drift off into the water. So let's discuss. I believe, and I don't think I was ever confused about this, and I didn't realize that other people were confused about this. Lewis told the truth. And the way you figure out that Lewis told the truth is comparing the things that match. Cicely was trying to make him feel better. And so she kissed him like a woman because she was trying to do what she thought her mother wasn't doing right, because she didn't want him to leave. Him indulging in the favoritism, it created a emotionally incestuous relationship between he and Cicely. And when you create emotionally incestuous relationships with your children, you treat them like they're adults that understand life, but they're not. They're children. And they are simply doing what they believe you want them to do. Everything that Cicely did was what she thought her father wanted her to do. Everything. And so when she took that moment to try to kiss him and replace her mother, because she felt like her mother was pushing him away and she wanted to keep him and make sure he didn't leave them for Maddie Monroe, the lines got blurred. But the lines had already been blurred. He'd already allowed her to almost sit next to him as if she was his wife. So she took that role on in making him feel better. And he was drunk, but when he hit her, it was, no, that's not right. But it's your fault that she felt that that was something she should do, because you blurred the lines. He had been blurred the lines. So that kiss was only, basically a culmination of the relationship that he had created with his daughter. Honestly, I feel like he probably took Cicely to cheat too, and she knew. And so they had to create this bond between them so Cicely wouldn't tell her mother. And I believe he often antagonized the relationship between Cicely and Roz so Cicely wouldn't tell Roz what she knew. But the night that she showed up to his office and Maddie was there, you betrayed all of us with that. So I think she went home and she told her mama. Her mama comes downstairs and wants to argue, and Cicely wants to do what she does, which is come in after and sweep it up and clean it up and make daddy feel good again, right? Because that's still what she wants. She still loves him, even though she was mad at him too, which is why she told her mama. So, in her trying to make him feel better, to fix it, him being drunk, the lines being blurred, him hitting her out of shock and shame. He hit her out of shame and also out of shock. But she was so angry with him that I believe all of her interactions thereafter were a response to the trauma. But it was also, I'm angry with daddy because of what he did. He hit me when I was just trying to fix it. It hurt her so bad because she had never been on the other end of his mistreatment. She had never received the mistreatment the way the way her mom did, the way Eve even did. She had never experienced that. It was the hurt of her having, so, basically the hurt of her getting reprimanded. He rejected her. Yes. And that's what hurt her. And that's why she told her sister that he tried to take advantage of her until she fought him off. That's why. But essentially, if you listen to his letter and you listen to the story that Cicely told, the moments that match up, the slap, the kiss being endearing at first, and then something happening thereafter, those things matched up. But that moment when he said the way she looked at me, I knew I had lost her. And then match that with the way that she retold the story of Maddie and him in the carriage house in the barn. Her ability to lie, her ability to be vindictive, and the fact that you have created a codependent, emotionally incestuous relationship with her and made her an adversary of her mother. Traumatized at a vital time. You're going through your period. You're 14 years old. You're coming of age. You're in that stage between childhood and womanhood. And then your father dies. Now you have to deal with the guilt and the pain that was left behind. But also, as time goes on, it'll hurt because you'll feel somewhat responsible. And I'm not gonna lie, y'all, it caught me up because I was like, in one moment, y'all were wrong for making those children keep secrets for y'all. But if those children had kept those secrets, would their father still be alive? That's the question. Now, is it worth him being alive? Or should he have died? Because in 3 years' time, everybody was going to be happy again. Like the lady said, Elzora was absolutely right. She said sometimes people fall on their own swords. When she told Roz that when she got her reading, to me that meant you're in pain because your husband is cheating on you. But this is going to work itself out because his cheating with who he cheats with is going to catch up to him. Nobody needed to feel guilty or responsible for what happened but Lewis, because Lewis essentially made the decision to have sex with Maddie, to flaunt it in front of town, to show his children, for his wife and everybody else to see it. It was only a matter of time before somebody else told Mr. Marrero what was going on. But because of the way it happened, because of what happened with Cicely, look to your children. It happened within instead of from somebody on the outside. But yeah, y'all, it's a lot. It's so deep though, y'all. It's so deep because it absolutely goes to the way people do things around their kids as if their kids don't understand. And then when their kids do understand, they make their kids responsible for them as adults, which is not a good thing. It's never a good thing to enter into agreements with your children as if they're adults. And people do that all the time. And that's what was going on. I wish it was a book too. I was looking it up like, this shit not from a book. But that was exactly it, you guys. Like, that was exactly it. Like, how everybody basically knew what was going on. It was going to happen, but because of, the interpersonal relationships between him and his kids and his wife and all of those things. I mean, he even wrote in a letter about how he needed to be seen as a hero. He needed to be seen the way those women looked at him, the way Maddie looked at him, the way his wife looked at him at times, the way Cicely looked at him. He needed that. Cassie Lemon's actual story. She said, yeah, it's based off of her childhood. But yeah, adults are always telling kids to keep secrets in the house. And we know it's for protection overall, but sometimes it causes so much harm to the children when you make them emotionally responsible for their parents. It's very harmful, especially during the years where they're trying to develop their own personalities, their own feelings, their own mind. And you basically take it over with your shit. It corrupts the way they grow up. It really does. And then you add the death on top of it. Child, them children needed therapy like a motherfucker after this. Children should never be the secret keepers. I think, yeah, it is. It's based off her traveling down here to Louisiana as a child. Man, Bondi, I love deep discussions like this. Oh, good. I'm so glad y'all are enjoying it. I hope that I'm communicating it clearly to everybody, because it's a lot in my mind be going all over the place. I read the script, and within it, Cicely and her siblings are said to be raised like little adults. That was obvious. I'm going to tell you why that was obvious. Quoting Shakespeare. Would 11-year-olds quote Shakespeare? Like, they had read the Greek tragedies. Those children were left to fend for themselves while the mother obsessed about her husband and the husband cheated. You know what I'm saying? They walked around with Aunt Maiselle that's smoking cigarettes and giving readings to the women in town about, who's taking their money and who's sleeping with who. Back in the day, I feel like they absolutely raised more children were raised like adults than now. It's called parentification, placing children in adult positions and expecting them to behave as adults. It was happening all over the place, except for with Poe. Poe was the only one that it seemed like was allowed to be a child, which is so funny because it makes me wonder if that is an extension of the way Black men are coddled in their families, because Lewis was obviously coddled in some way in order for him to be this narcissistic as an adult, and everybody just goes along with it because he's the doctor. He was a covert narcissist. Yes, the narcissist martyrdom is sickening from the letter. It was, because he was fucked up. He was fucked up in so many ways. A lot of what he was doing, his relationships with the children, with, everybody, was to protect, his shit, his cheating, him getting his feels from being needed and pined over by these women. Well said, thoroughly explained. Bravo, Bonnie. Thank you. I'm glad y'all enjoyed. This was so, so good. I need to watch the movie again. Can you do the best man? Yeah, all the women knew Lewis was cheating, and it took a man to end it. I wonder if there's a message in that. I wonder. And then add the gifts on top of it. Whew. What happened in this house stays in this house. Maiselle needed the same. That's another way they mirror each other. Part of her counseling work was that she needed to be someone's superhero too. Yep. That's why she looked down on voodoo done by others. Yep. That's very true. It's always a problem because it calls on them to be more emotionally responsible than they have the capability to be. It stunts their growth by taking away the full growth process. Oh, girl, when I tell y'all this movie was a lot like, my life growing up here, a lot like my life growing up here. This is a great review. Thank you. Lewis was conquered by the least important person in his life. Jeez. Did they ever spend time with Poe at all? The grandmama did. The drinking in the beginning, Well, 1950s education was about the books, a mark of black wealth for sure. But it also, I think, those children were reading clearly adult themes. People cheating and getting killed and fucking their parents. Yeah. Yeah. I think that definitely lended to the story. A dream, you're absolutely right. This is parentification. Yes, it is. Bondi, I would love for you to do Color Purple. I know that it's popular and talked about and quoted a lot, but I would love to hear what you have to say on some of the themes explored. I would love to. That's one of my favorites. Poe was absolutely a mama's boy. I knew too much as a child. I became a people pleaser because of abandonment and trying to fix things I didn't know how to. Therapy has helped me understand so much. You and me both. You sound just like me. I literally just had a conversation with my friend yesterday, and I had to make her understand how she did the same thing. Like it was her and her mom against the world. So she also became an adult early on, becoming responsible for the adult in her life at a young age, and still doing it now, being a people pleaser, being scared of being abandoned. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like me and my friend were just talking about this. Remember the Brown v. Board of Education? So them quoting Shakespeare was a status flex for sure. I mean, the whole thing was a status flex if you paid attention. He's a doctor. They're a well-to-do family. They're a Creole family. Their family owns the island, basically. This is Eve's Bayou, and they're the descendants of Eve. This is they island, basically. That's why the children ran around with reckless abandon. But it was beautiful to see these black children running throughout something that was basically considered their town. My family was the same, drinking champagne on special occasions, knowing too much, but still having to stay in a child's place. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, baby. That sounds just like me growing up. We did not see Poe a lot. Like, did y'all even care about the little boy? All the men were allowed to act up. I have never watched the movie, but it sounds really interesting. It is. I believe Cicely was obsessed and loved her dad, came on to him, and when he slapped her, she was hurt and embarrassed. Yep. The boundaries weren't clear in the household because he made the first child rank higher than the mother. In therapy, we call this a hierarchy or triangulation. Yes, triangulation. He sounds a little like Ryan from Black Ink Crew Chicago. Ooh, can you do what's love got to do with it next? We'll see. This is a great review. Thanks, Brian. Thank y'all for joining me. Make sure y'all like the video. This was wonderful. I think I watched this movie when I was too young initially. Me too. I'm trying to think of another movie that had a lot going on that I'd like for you to just say. I saw this as a child, and never in my wildest mind it was this deep, right? I really feel like as an adult watching this back, it was way better than when I watched it as a kid. Yes, Lisa Ray's relationship with her father and how her mother's relationship. Yes, it reminded me of that very much so. Daddy's a whore. Daddy uses daughter against mom in order to protect himself, because if the daughter is on the mom side, then when you come home from cheating on the mom, then the mom and the daughters are going to be upset with you. Just like when he walked into the room and his mom, his sister, and his wife were all upset with him. But you keep that endearment with one of the daughters so that she's always the one that cares more about your feelings than hers. Really, for most women, the minute you are sexualized, the childhood ends. Oh, Lord. Why is why is there so many of our stories? I grew up like this. People always said I was too mature for my age, but I was raised to be that way. That's another thing. They, call you fast or smart aleck when you are smart and astute and mature for your age. But the funny part about it is the adults around you made you that way by putting you in adult situations. Yes, I not only tried to help my mom, she dealt with depression, but didn't know it all the time. My mom had unresolved trauma and more that I helped take care of my sisters. It was a lot. Yeah, you sound just like my friend yesterday saying that she, her mom went through depression and there were times when she had to, take care of her and her little brother. It's crazy how we watch so many of these different movies and have no understanding of them until we become adults and watch them again to gain an understanding of them. It is. Journey Smollett played this role. Yes, she did, y'all. This was absolutely amazing. The chat made it all more better, minus that weird Sierra thing. I didn't see that, and I'm glad that I didn't. As a person who loves all things witchy, I watched this as a child strictly from the mystic aspect of it. Now, as an adult, I see it as a much deeper story. right? I feel like I didn't even pay attention to the mystic part about it as much. It was really more so about, like the dad and the daughter's relationship to me. Um, I guess that's what I paid more attention to, because even though I was like daddy's girl, I was more like Eve in this way. Like I was, I was the baby and stuff, but I always felt that my sister, my oldest sister, was my father's pride. You know what I'm saying? Like pride came from her, especially because she was much older than me, so she accomplished a lot more. His relationship with her was based in her being, him being proud of her for what she had accomplished. So mine was like, I'll never reach that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can never do enough to make you happy. I can never make, do enough to make you not be angry. Like those types of feelings. I remember watching Was Love Got to Do with it as a child. And when certain scenes come on, my mom would tell her to turn our heads. Child, a sex scene that they could have kept. It's sad young girls have to be careful around nasty old men. They can't dress as a kid and be free. Nope. While the older women didn't explain this instead of making you an enemy. And that's another thing. A lot of times I feel like if only things had been explained, we would have had a different experience with our parents growing up. You don't need to tell your kids everything, but you need to explain the mechanics to them. You should review The Wedding with Lynn Whitfield and Halle Berry. Oh, I remember that one. The Feast of All Saints. Got to do that one. Oh, that was a good one. I remember that one. You don't like The Color Purple? I love The Color Purple. That's one of me and my mom's favorite movies. Bondi, being from Louisiana, how did you connect with this movie as a child? I connected with it as a child because the scenery, first of all, but y'all know I say, I grew up, a little New Orleans princess, so to speak, big family. Um, my parents weren't rich, but we were well known and we were extremely comfortable, and we were always around the who's who. My dad was friends with, politicians and police officers, and my mom, our family is famous in the city. So everybody knows my mom and my aunts and my uncles, my grandparents, like everybody knows us. So essentially, I really did run around like Eve as a child. Me and my cousins ran around the seventh ward as children, free, reckless, abandon, being old enough to understand certain things, to be careful of men and going too far away. But my mom's hair salon was right down the street from the house that they filmed the first Candyman movie in. So, growing up, a lot of the mystique of New Orleans and the history and the family dynamic and the drinking and the partying, all of it resonated because it was basically just depictions of what our families look like. Mine as well. You know what I'm saying? My daddy, what I am not a Mercadale. I am a Montana. My mom. I'm a Montana. So, you could look it up. Mm, we're not an old Creole family like that. No. We're Creole, but we're not like a known mixed family. A lot of the known Creole families in New Orleans are from mixed heritage, for real, for real. But for me, ours comes from Masson Indian, from the the Indian culture here in New Orleans. That's where my family's um fame comes from. Growing up, so like if you look up Tootie Montana, Edward Montana, like that's my family. I'm not doing Crooklyn. I've already done Skeleton Key. I'm going to repost it. I write a letter. I would love to see you review Baps. Okay, all right, I might. I love Baps. I'm gonna find Skeleton Key and put that up for y'all this weekend. Hopefully they'll approve it since they've been flagging everything that I've been putting up. After hearing you, I'm gonna go watch it again. Sexual abuse also makes you grow up faster, but you still have a feeling of loss. Yeah, you do. I know the Montana's awesome. Oh, okay, yeah. This is a great review. Thank you. I'm glad y'all enjoyed it. I'm gonna go ahead and skip on out on y'all. But y'all have, I've already done Love Jones. There's a playlist of all of the Now That We're Grown movies for y'all to check out. Okay, so y'all check that out. And I will see y'all in the next one. Thank y'all so much for coming through. Have a good rest of y'all day. Love y'all.